What's up, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world right now. I wish you a great day. You're back with me, Ian Kane, and a big welcome to this week's installment of DappRadar Meets. The date today is Wednesday, September the 6th. Crazy. A huge hello to all you listeners, and thanks for tuning in for another episode. It's really cool to be here, and I hope you're all having a good week so far. So today, I'm joined by David Wojcicki. He's the financial and product architect at TerraLand. I just want to do a quick sound check just to make sure we've got you there, David. Are you there?
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
Got you there. How you doing? You okay today?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
Nice, man. Yeah, I'm good. I've just had a little incident with my fire. Nearly set fire to my office this morning, so I'm a little bit stressed out. But yeah, it can only get better from here, right?
Yeah.
So cool. Let me jump into some admin, David, and then we'll jump off and get straight into the AMA. All right. So for anyone listening who's not familiar with DappRadar, we're the world's leader in Dapp analytics and tracking. Our data feeds traditional media like Bloomberg and then more crypto-specific media like Cointelegraph and Decrypt. At the same time, our products from the portfolio manager to our NFT value estimator give the community members the tools they need to navigate this complex space. But most importantly, stay ahead of all the noise out there in the cryptoverse and stay really well informed. So as always, we record these sessions for people to catch up later and unpack any of the more complicated details that we're going to go through today. So you can grab them on YouTube. Just head over to our channel where you can find hundreds of educational and analytical videos that should help you along your journey. So if you've got a question like how to set up MetaMask on layer 2, type it in and the answer will be there for you with a nice instructional video. So what's been going on this week already? Already it's a pretty exciting week and we're only on Tuesday as always in the cryptoverse. So we had the Utes NFT drop, which happened, I believe, either last night or early today. But yeah, and also the creators of that collection, Dust Labs, have just confirmed 7 million in funding. So it's kind of cool for Solana. We're seeing some good surges there in collections like the D-Gods and other things. So it'll be interesting to watch Solana and how they shape out their NFT offer. Another interesting thing this morning, I saw Binance announce they're going to stop supporting USDC in favor of their own stablecoin BUSD. Which is kind of interesting. It makes a logical move for Binance. And given what's been happening with stablecoins recently, I don't really see, it's a pretty good choice by them. But obviously the USDC dropout will have a bit of an impact. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Also, our August Dapp industry report has landed. So that's out now. So you can check everything that was going on during August. We saw a little increase in DeFi activity, almost 4% from the previous month. However, TVL is still down, but that's mainly as a result of the Tornado Cash situation. DeFi dApps on Ethereum scaling solutions are enjoying considerable increases in their DeFi metrics ahead of the merge. And the merge has been confirmed by the Ethereum Foundation around September 15th. So around September 15th, which is actually my birthday, which is kind of cool. So hopefully everything goes ahead and is all good there and I won't be crying on my birthday. So it brings a new consensus mechanism while turning ETH into a deflationary asset with no changes to the chain's scalability. So the report is out. You can go and cop that on the website. Check it out in your own time. Quite a long read, but tells you everything you need to know. Don't go over there now because now we're going to talk to David. So David, what we always do is we kick off with this thing I call an elevator pitch, where I want you to imagine that we're in an elevator and it just broke down and there's loads of money. It's all flowing out of my pockets like I'm an investor. It's very obvious. And I want you to kind of give me the 411 on Tland and why I should be paying attention and what's interesting. So no pressure, obviously, but off you go, David. What can you do?
Right. Yeah. So we are the Tland project. So what we sort of do is we fractionalize digital assets, such as NFTs, metaverses, or sort of any other digital assets sort of available thanks to blockchain technology. And what we sort of do is we allow users to make money from owning even just a small fraction of the most exclusive and lucrative NFTs that are out there. So that divisional sort of ownership breaks down those capital barriers to entry for a lot of those digital assets. Mm-hmm. And so it's not only that the richest can afford these anymore, it's actually everyone that was even interested in one of these is able to do it. So that really ranges from anything from CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, metaverses such as Sandbox, Decentraland, Pax World. All of these really are available through our platform.
Nice.
So even if let's just say you take CryptoPunks, for example, right? You put that image in your head. The initial price at the beginning, if I'm not mistaken, was around $14 for one of these NFT digital arts. The cheapest one I can find on the market right now from their website is selling for well over 100,000 US dollars. That's something that not most people can actually be able to access it initially if they want to. They can't benefit from these price increases anymore. But Tland is here to change that. And yeah, that's sort of in a brief sort of overview what we do is we divide that ownership from these larger assets, something that is usually very in high demand, so price is usually right up there, and dividing that ownership into smaller chunks so ordinary investors can actually invest in these if they would like to.
Very cool, very cool. So from a very basic perspective, I'm likening it to kind of sharing the cost of dinner with 10 friends, and you're all kind of participating in the investment. So we're talking about fractionalized NFTs. We're talking about equality as well in regards to opportunities to invest. So that's cool as well. So yeah, we'll dive into all the deeper meaning of everything that the platform does as we go through. But I want to start at the beginning, David. I always like to get an idea of who I'm talking to and kind of who you are and what you're all about. So let's start at the beginning, shall we? Tell us a little bit about yourself, David, and your kind of journey into this crypto blockchain world. What are your experiences and why did it grab your interest?
Yeah, to sort of start off that, we have to maybe dive a little bit back into how I even met Tland as a project. Tland initially, it's not necessarily a beginning project because we have already started what we do, and we did it on the Terra blockchain, and we did it using real estate. So we use the same mechanisms that we learned from there. That's what we're applying to now to digital assets. Having said that, that is where sort of I met Tland and where I found their project and saw that they were actually combining, firstly, something that was not really necessarily seen as often in crypto. So actually combining real estate with blockchain technology. And it's not only making it sort of almost like a reflective sort of thing or like a mirror, I guess, mirror between the two. It was actually combining those assets together. And it was really fascinating me, especially for myself where I'm a bit younger. So I was sort of a fresh uni student. Looking at housing and things like that, it's something I personally can't necessarily afford to begin with as a uni student. But we all know it's one of the safest things that was to invest in at the beginning. It's a safe return, but it's something that Tland was offering to break down for people like myself, something I couldn't look into yet for the next couple of years, probably until I start getting a lot of savings here going. And that's sort of really what brought me towards Tland and where sort of Tland was also beginning at the same time.
Nice, man. Like for me, when I started working in blockchain, it was around six years ago now, and I remember ideas like this were things that we used to talk about all the time. We had these fractionalization, tokenization of real estate, of large scale assets. We never spoke about NFT, PFP collections. We never spoke about things like that. We were all really excited about the real world application and how this could kind of better people. So personally, I'm very happy that we're coming back to these conversations after a kind of how to call it, like evolution of the space, which kind of focused on different things like DeFi, yield farming, GameFi, NFT application. So it's very cool, David, to be sitting here with you talking about something that can really have an effect in the world, I think. So yeah, nice. But what were you doing before that? Like, are you said you were at university, but were you into crypto? Like, did it get you? Did it pique your interest a little bit, or is it not really? Are you more about the technology?
Yeah, it did sort of pique my interest because it was quite a different take on. I mean, I studied finance at university, right? So a lot of that learning was about the very traditional markets, right? And that's where I did gain a bit of interest in crypto because it sort of challenges that what we learn and what we know, sort of what we've been learning from for years and years beforehand, even right before our parents learned and their parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and crypto sort of blockchain is challenging that, right? And we can see it every day. It challenges even the way we think about even simple things like what is currency, right? And it's just challenging the way we start sort of tackling some of these issues that we do have in the financial world and while making it more sort of user focused and letting people decide how they want to sort of experience some of these things and how they want to utilize it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's really what sort of began it for me, sort of exploring that. And it was always just interesting to see that at first people didn't really see blockchain as a possibility. It was just it looked just like it's something to challenge, right? The norm.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to begin to see that it actually has a lot of really great foundation built already, and it's sort of grounded in actually a realistic vision of how the world can operate, and some of us believe should be the only way it should operate.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was just very interesting sort of dive into that and then see how that works for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like, it's an interesting topic, I think. And one thing I like about it is that I think now that an alternative financial system is starting to become a bit more apparent, people are starting to educate themselves on the financial system they've been a part of for the last 40 years or longer even, that they didn't really have much, they didn't know about really. They didn't understand how money was created, that it's lent at interest and all these other things. They didn't understand that. So I quite like the idea that when the alternative came, people were in a bit more of a rush to educate themselves. I think it's overall beneficial for humanity to learn more about finance, and then obviously now these alternatives as well. So David, we're going to jump in and like talk about Tland and the specifics, but I want to address the elephant in the room for a second, because obviously, as you mentioned at the beginning, the platform's running on in the Terra ecosystem, and I do presume, but not 100%, that there was some using the Terra stablecoin there as well. So I went on the website this morning and I see an announcement on the site about an airdrop and a replacement, and I just wondered if you could tell us a bit about this. It's probably one of the most important things that's happened to you this year. And yeah, out of all negativity comes positivity. So perhaps we can address this first and get it out the way. Like, what's the plan of action moving forward?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so sort of as I was mentioning earlier, we did have our beginning already on the TerraLand blockchain, and we use the same mechanisms we're using now for digital assets, but for fractionalizing real estate, and everything around that. And we did start around October, November last year. And by December, we started selling some of our first properties, and we sold around 4 properties in 4 months since then.
Nice.
Right until the Terra crash. But yes, our vision already for our project at that stage was to expand towards other assets as well. So we had some initial ideas there, and it was also to make our platform a multi-chain platform. Because one of the big challenges we also see in the sort of space is that it happens quite often that these blockchains are quite isolated, or the communities aren't always sort of as integrated as they should be. But making it a one-stop shop and making it easier to access some of the greatest projects out there, or just doing it from one central location is a lot of help for a lot of people, because it doesn't sort of separate them or alienate them from one chain to another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
So we already had some of our groundwork going there towards moving to other chains, especially Ethereum. That was, I think, our first plan. And so, yeah, the Terra crash did happen, and we were on Terra at that point. But luckily, we already had some of our work going for moving towards the other chain. Sorry, not moving, but expanding towards the other chains.
Nice.
And the Terra crash really just sort of made that a bit of a priority for us.
Yeah.
Of course, there were a lot of negatives that happened for our project, and we did lose some of our funds there because of what happened to the UST and to the Terra blockchain.
Sure.
But there was also a lot of positives, because it showed to a lot of our investors that what our investors, or when they invested in real estate through our project, through our platform, they were one of the few investors, if not only from Terra, that actually saved all their funds, because they did manage to diversify into something that is the whole idea, is to make it a bit more stable there. And they actually earned an income throughout that period. So that really was an amazing proof of concept for us. We stress tested it through probably the harshest reality you can, right? It's a blockchain going up in flames.
Yeah,
there's nothing really more you can do, but it's showing that that sort of system does work, and it has worked, and it will work again. And so what you're seeing now on our website is we already have a sort of a user base built over in a few months on Terra. And what you saw on the old website, so that's the TerraLand.io, is us giving the possibility of our users to migrate their native Tland tokens towards our new platform that's going to be based on Ethereum. Since they've already shown their support and love for us, this is our way of saying, hey, well, come with us towards the new chain, towards our towards a new platform that's going to build now on Ethereum. Come with us, and we'll help you move your coins with you.
Awesome.
So now if you're interested in seeing how the digital asset side of our platform is going to look, we do have a demo.tland.app, And that's where you can see how the digital asset platform will look like. It's very sort of similar in style, but it's just going to be a bit more focused on digital assets to begin with.
Nice. So so thank you, David, for answering that question. And I hope you don't mind me asking it. I think it's an important thing that we needed to get out of the way and talk about with all the negativity. But I'm really happy to hear that out of that negativity, as you said, it's quite funny, isn't it? The ultimate stress test. It's out of many negatives come great positives. So I think what you said is bang on, that the investors have seen a proof of concept that you can get through this, basically. So fair play, guys. That's really, really cool. And yeah, thank you for answering that question. So looking at so let's talk about TerraLand and the Tland token and what's it all about and what do you want to help people do? What's the market fit? What are the problems, and then what solutions do you guys want to bring to the table for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we see now is when we're opening up our platform towards digital assets to begin with, the problems we see are quite similar to what we saw with the real estate, right? So a lot of these things are financially unavailable for a lot of people. They can be very expensive. So if we look at NFTs, obviously I was mentioning the cheapest CryptoPunk at the moment was over 100,000 US dollars. That is, you have to be really willing to purchase one of these to even want to try and benefit from some of these.
Yeah.
And
you have
only
to
the
be a
people that
different
can
sort of
afford
class of person, actually, don't you, David? Let's be real.
Yes,
it's not
yes,
the
correct.
average Joe. It's not really for me. I don't have that. But if you do have that sort of money lying around, there's some great opportunities there. But yes, it's kind of people have been priced out of the proper opportunities. So yeah, sorry for interrupting. Yeah, sorry.
No, absolutely, exactly, and it can make people feel like they're unwelcome to join some of those markets or some of those spaces.
Exactly.
And that is sort of what we are trying to challenge here now. So it used to be that only the people that were in that class and were able to afford some of these lucrative digital assets, they're the ones that are able to rent them out to make some income out of it. They're the ones that can use them as collateral. They're the ones that can see their assets increase in incredible value and benefit from that. So that's a problem we saw, that it's not for everyone, unfortunately. But why not use the mechanisms we have created on Terra and apply it now towards the Tland new project towards digital assets? So that's sort of really what we're focusing on is the fractional ownership of buying and selling, and being able to benefit from, let's say, the speculative gain, or being able to rent out your NFT, or find even somewhere else you can use it as collateral to get a loan on it, giving that sort of option of extra utility towards assets that did not have that utility before, but also giving them the liquidity to be purchased and be sold at more reasonable price points for more users. We want to open up a secondary market for our platform, and that will add even more sort of liquidity and utility towards owning some of these digital assets, because now you can buy and sell as much as you want between other users, right? So also one of our main focuses for the whole digital asset is to make it as decentralized and sort of user-centric as possible. Since the user or the investor is the one investing in some of these products, why have it any other way but have those investors actually decide on how to use it?
Yeah.
So by letting them decide, all right, well, me as one of the owners, I'm voting with my other owners here to decide, all right, I want to use my underlying asset for this purpose or for another purpose. Maybe I'm ready to sell it, and I vote with my community to say I want to sell it. And that should be your right to decide on how you want to do that.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes you'll have instances where you are ready to sell your digital asset, right? Your underlying, let's say, CryptoPunk, but your community is not yet. They still want that price to rise a little bit. Well, that is something the secondary market will also change for those users to be able to actually exit their position if they're ready, if they're willing to do so. Just sort of adding that extra utility towards something that, first of all, was not even accessible for a lot of these people, for a lot of us as investors, but and being able to do something with some of these assets that you couldn't even dream of earlier. Yeah. So that's really sort of what we're trying to do it. And as we did with TerraLand to begin with, same thing with Tland here, is to make it a multi-chain marketplace for these fractionalized NFTs, so the FNFTs, to allow users from all chains to actually come together and benefit in some of the amazing projects that come up on blockchain.
It's very cool. Like, I've got some really You're really piquing my interest with your answer to that question there. I've got a couple of questions off the back of your answer, actually, David, because I'm thinking about. So, number one question: how does it work in regards to, say, for example, I own a CryptoPunk and I'm ready to sell, and I know that the market isn't that liquid, and I'll probably have more chance of selling it if I shard it and divide it between 10 people who might want to hold a piece of this. Do I come to your platform, create an account, and list my item for sale in 10 pieces? Do you fractionalize the NFT? How does that process work? Like, are you working with holders, or do you buy the NFTs and shard them? How does it work?
That's a very good question. So the way it works is we start off by a simple round of voting on the Tland platform for the DAO community to decide what they would like to invest in, right? So we do obviously are able to facilitate all sorts of digital assets. So we start off by simply asking the question, what kind of digital asset do you invest in, right?
Okay.
Is it CryptoPunks? Is it Bored Apes? Is it a sandbox plot of lands you want to purchase? With that vote afterwards, we open up a fundraising event, and that's where users can pool in their money together, their funds, start for a period of time. So the fund is open for a period of time. After that period of time finishes, users get a second round of voting, those that are joined the fund, to decide what they want to purchase for the funds they have collected. So it allows them to have that sort of flexibility of deciding at the moment what they would actually to purchase. It of course doesn't go without saying if you as a user own a Bored Ape you'd like to sell to the community, that is also possible through our platform, and that is something we're also willing to take on if that case does exist. But yeah, after the community decides on what when they decide on what NFT they'd like to purchase, that is when we purchase that NFT, we're able to create the fractionalized NFTs, and that's when users can start benefiting from all that sort of extra utility and decision making that NFTs will give you. You can decide if you want to lease it out as the end user, the underlying asset, whether you want to earn from it, whether you want to sell it. That sort of really becomes the user prerogative to decide how they want to use it.
How do you thank you, David, that answered my question. But how do you I do a lot of group things with my friends, i.e. investments, whereby, for example, we might buy a piece of land or a plot of land, but this is like gentlemen's agreements between a gang of 5 friends where we make a deal and say we'll all divide the amount of money, and that's the simple take on it, right? Then what usually occurs is we have lots of problems regarding selling or what we want to do with the item. So when we first started doing it, we didn't have the conversation about, what's the price that we'd all be happy to sell at. So then when the price started rising, we were having debates, let's call them, about what we should do with this NFT. How do you handle that structure? Is it all handled with smart contracts? How do people, say there's 10 people all invested in a CryptoPunk, do they need to decide at the beginning, like, we'd be happy with 150,000 sale? Or how does it work, David? Like, how does that work? Sorry for going so granular, but like
that's absolutely
genuinely interested in
that's a very good question to decide how that works. So sort of the main sort of idea here is to give those users or the holders of these FNFTs the option of voting on some of these aspects, so they can bring up a topic they'd like to bring up with their let's say ownership circle. And they get to decide, all right, well, obviously we've seen that price has risen by 20% here, and my proposition is I'd like to sell it. And we ask the ownership sort of community what they think about that. Obviously, we have a quorum and sort of a straightforward voting system. How that works, you decide on depending on how much of the underlying asset you own. That will, of course, be how much voting power you have.
Yeah.
So it's you can, yes, you said you have, for example, you have 10 friends and you're investing in an asset together. You can have 3 friends where one of them owns a bigger portion than 2 of them, right?
Yep.
So that is obviously also visible in the voting sense. So if you do own more or less, well, it will all be scaled to how much of that actual asset you own.
Okay.
So
it's a democratic
that sort of answers your question.
Where they can vote on what they would like to see, and then the majority. Well, that's pretty cool. So yeah, some people might end up a bit disappointed, but in the end, it's the fairest way to deal with things, right? It's actually pretty cool because when we were trying to deal with that between us, we could have really used like some help there, like a third party, non-bias help to keep us all grounded a little bit. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a good thing to sort of have that conversation beforehand on what the rules are there. So yeah, that's sort of what we can help with a little bit, is to just make it as transparent and obvious, so you sort of how it's going to work. You can see it working.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of the sort of multi-chain aspect of it, so you want to bring NFTs from all networks. So you've got blue chip NFTs on Ethereum. I'm presuming you guys deal with those metaverse lands. What are the main kind of blockchains that you guys are dealing with at the moment, asset wise? Are there a couple that you're like really focused on, and are there any
we are
plans to kind of expand that as well?
Yes, we are sort of speaking to a few blockchains at the moment to sort of start building on those platforms. Obviously, as we sort of mentioned at the beginning of podcast, we did come from Terra, and we lost quite a bit of funding. So there is a lot of discussion on which blockchains are actually willing to introduce this sort of product to start off with.
Yeah.
As we know, the market obviously is in a little bit of a dip.
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult. But we are in some very deep talks now with quite a few blockchains. Name a few. I can say we're talking to Avalanche, we're talking to Casper, we're talking to Elrond. Just to name a few, do have interest blockchains to start building on their blockchain. So that is of course, information that we will let our users know as we know more details about how those conversations are going.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, definitely want to start expanding towards more and more blockchains as we go. We obviously want to start with our foundation here on Ethereum, as our base project. And I mean, we can even start saying that we are excited to start opening up quite soon, because on the 22nd of September, we will have our first fundraising event. So the product is here, and all the sort of the whole project is going to work.
Whoa. Is that a Tland token sale, or what's that? Is that a fundraising?
No, that will be a fundraising, a collection, sort of a fundraising event for a Bored Ape of community's choosing.
Cool. So, right, okay. So that's like one project where you'll be able to get into that and then showcase how that works and how many people are involved and things like that. Nice, man. That's very cool. And it is all about liquidity, right? So the introduction of the marketplace is going to help. Yeah. So I must ask, the first platform, the kind of dividing real estate, is super interesting to me and always been really interesting. And can I ask why you guys kind of went in that direction? Is it something to do with where you guys are geographically located? Is real estate a real pain in the arse over where you guys are? Like, is it just an unfair system? Is it about that? Like, did you guys identify something there and think we can change this?
Well, maybe I can say a little bit about sort of who is in our team a little bit, because that might shed a little bit of light on why we see or why we saw, and we still do see, of course, real estate as one of the safest investment sort of things. We do have our three co-founders. They all have quite extensive knowledge in building sort of investment portfolios, and building those diversified investment strategies for clients at financial institutions in their past. And so it goes without saying that real estate was quite a big foundation in a lot of these portfolios. So knowing that real estate is necessary sort of safety layer for any investor, that is something that the team wanted to bring towards crypto.
Nice.
Because we saw that, firstly, a lot of these real life traditional assets, they try and get reflected into crypto, but it isn't always done the right way. And we saw that we have an opportunity here to actually change how we see it, and by also doing this, sort of shine a bit more credibility towards blockchain, towards the greater community of I guess even the world in general, and how they perceive blockchain, right? Because if you see that real estate actually exists in blockchain, well, then anything else can as well, right?
Yeah.
So that is sort of where that began, and it's something that we, of course, as the Tland project, will come back. So it doesn't go without saying that digital assets, of course, we're focusing on that right now, to when we're opening up on Ethereum now, but real estate will follow after that, right? We will open up the same mechanisms again towards allowing the diversification through real estate. But yeah, fractionalizing ownership in real estate as well.
Very smart. Like it makes perfect sense. Obviously, real estate is one of the tried and tested methods of getting an ROI. Everybody needs somewhere to live. Like these things seem to be very appropriate. One question I have is it a investment purely for ROI? So for example, do you guys round up, so for retail, sorry, for residential stuff and for buildings, would you guys say to a bunch of investors, "Hey, we can build this property and it will have 100 rooms, for example, and then we're going to sell it instantly, and then that's your ROI"? Or do they sit on this investment for a number of years and treat it like the total asset is the investment? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there are sort of different ways in
Yeah.
how you want to invest in real estate. Of course, it's up to the end user to decide how they want to do it. Initially, what we proposed and helped sort of facilitate was the simple renting out properties. So we are located in Europe, so the team's based in Poland. And we do have quite good knowledge on how sort of the markets operate. We did use sort of development companies to help find really good locations,
Nice.
right? So obviously, if you look at Poland, it's a beautiful country. It's my home country as well, but it's not necessarily a good investment area because I mean, how often do you go to holiday to Poland? You maybe have 2 months of holiday season, and then renting out something beyond those 2 months is quite difficult. So we settled on selling the first few properties in Spain because the holiday season there for Europeans is all year round. Yeah. It's always warm. It's always nice. Everyone wants to go to Spain. So it was really focused on renting out these properties at the beginning and sort of giving that stable income to users over time, or making it as stable as possible. Nice. Of course, once the users are ready to sell, they're also able to sell that property and benefit from any price increases that happens there.
Nice.
But that also isn't sort of it is one of the possibilities of our platform, but it's not the only possibility of the platform. Sort of how you're mentioning, right? So if you want to buy, let's say, a place with 100 rooms, right? So we're talking, let's say we have office space or office buildings. We can fractionalize ownership in all of those in bigger scale projects, and having bigger investors have a bigger play at things they might have had access to before as well. Investing in a couple floors of a high-rise building in Dubai, for example. That is also within the scopes of our product here.
That's really cool. Just interesting that you mentioned that you guys are in Poland there as well. I'm actually in Lithuania, so I know a little bit about Poland. We're neighbors, and one of the things I see in Poland often is they do have a lot of open space, and they have a drive towards solar energy. And they're trying to get farmers to sell their land so that they can start solar energy farms and things like this. Is that something maybe Tland could also be involved in? Not saying that you are or that you're thinking of it, but that kind of idea is quite interesting, right? Like shared ownership of a solar farm. Yeah. It just seems, just because you said Poland, it made me think about that. Is it something that,
Well,
it's always like the options are endless, really, aren't they? But is that something that could happen? Something like that? That'd be kind of cool, right?
I mean, the way sort of the way sort of the product works, I'm not sure how much it's limited to what sort of assets are able to be fractionalized. But the core idea, of course, it would work, right? I mean, you can try and fractionalize any sort of investment opportunity you can find. That's why we're sort of starting off with some of the, let's say, the core or very big ones and important ones in crypto right now, because that's where we're located. That's why we're looking at NFTs, where we're looking at metaverses or any other digital assets. And with our beginnings on Terra, where we started with real estate and integrating some of the traditional world into blockchain. So I think there's obviously no sort of limit on what is able to be fractionalized, as long as it makes sense for the end investor to actually want to own something like that.
Yeah. No, it just really excites me. Like, it's a really cool application of the tech, aside from the kind of PFP stuff and the other digital collectibles. It just really piques my interest. I think it's very cool. It can bring a lot of equality to people and give investment opportunities. Access to opportunities is arguably what's missing in the world, right? Like, and you know that after studying finance. Yes. And the idea that and like breaking the mold of, because in crypto it's also quite similar to traditional finance. If you've got a big stack of money, you can make investments and you can reap rewards, and that's not dissimilar to the other world. So it's great that we're trying to change it, and I think very admirable. So in the NFT side of things, you're sort of dealing with metaverse lands and other things. Could you share any trends, David, that you see there? Like what people are into? What are they asking for? Do they want other side NFT land? What are they urging for right now? Or is it more the blue chip collections that people are looking at? What do you see?
I mean, that's the whole idea of our first sort of round of voting on what collection users are even interested in. It will obviously give all the investors also security that, hey, it's not just a fund that has opened up, it's a fund that people are actually interested in because they decided they want this, right? The whole idea, I think, sparked a little bit while we were still on Terra, and we had some of our users ask, why not do this for some of the digital assets, right? And that's why we started thinking and then developing some of those ideas into reality slowly. Of course, the Terra crash sort of expedited that a little bit. Yeah, that's sort of it, really.
No, it makes sense. It's perfect, really. Like, it'll be interesting to see what people are urging after as well, and what trends emerge there, and what they're looking for, and sort of what the value of land is. One question, David, is about the values in terms of investment. So it's a dollar value, I take it, because if you're investing in real estate, let's say, that would be a dollar value. But then on the NFT side, you're doing it in crypto value. I'm just thinking about the kind of what happens if the value drops significantly? I mean, owners take a risk. Investors take a risk. They know that. But how is it kind of packaged? Is it done on crypto value or dollar values?
Yeah, so with the way real estate work, that was obviously on dollar value. It just made a bit more sense using stable coins. If you can even call USD a stable coin at this point.
Yeah.
Not so but stable yeah. Exactly, as stable as it was. Using stable coins for us was, I guess, US dollar equivalent made more sense for real estate because we do have to leave into the world of fiat currency eventually if we want to buy real estate. Hopefully not one day. Maybe some owners will want to sell their properties for cryptocurrencies exclusively. That would be
lovely.
Was
a case, wasn't there? That guy in New York sold a building, but then when the crypto crash happened in February, I think the value of his building dropped off because it was an ETH sale. So yeah, I was just thinking about that. He was like, my building's now worth nothing in ETH, basically. But you can adjust the price with real estate, I would imagine. You just adjust the crypto price to the value.
Exactly. Right? I mean, that's where the whole, same thing can happen to the US dollar, of course. It can happen. Yes. It's just less likely because there's way more backing behind it. But yeah, when talking about digital asset side of things, doing it in cryptocurrencies makes a bit more sense for us. So for example, with NFTs and Ethereum, buying and selling them for Ethereum makes a bit more sense because they are initially bought for Ethereum and that's their value, right?
Yeah. And that's how people think of them in the crypto land as well. I think maybe new entrants to the cryptoverse possibly don't think like that, but after some time you start to, right back at the beginning, I was always checking the fiat value of my crypto, but now I'm looking at ETH in comparison to Bitcoin. Like it's just the way you change how you think about the currencies, right? So I guess that will come. So, all right.
Well, exactly. Can you actually purchase for? And you're sort of asking what happens when value does drop. Well, that's sort of the risk of any investment, really. But obviously, the real estate side of things show that you don't have to be worried as much about that because it's a bit more grounded in physical world there. But with digital assets, of course, it's something that the users should be prepared for. But that's why they have the option of selling it if they want so, right? If you see that your underlying asset dropped by 10%, well, you can decide on selling either your fractionalized NFTs, or you can decide as a community to sell your underlying asset.
So if you,
as a whole,
you decide to sell your fraction, you just need somebody available to make that purchase who's willing to buy into the fraction, right? And then you can jump out your position. Exactly. Interesting.
And that happens entirely on our secondary market through our platform. So they are able to do that. But of course, on the contrary, of course, if prices go up, you're also able to decide that you only want to share your portion, or you as the whole community of that specific asset want to sell the whole underlying asset. So there's a lot of sort of options for the end user to decide how they want to operate this market, really. I mean, that's the whole idea. Give them the option of deciding what they want to do with what they own.
Fascinating to see how they operate, when we potentially get back into more buoyant times and some of these assets are starting to peak in value. It'd be fascinating to see the kind of conversations that are happening, and who wants to sell and who's a long-term holder and things like that. It'd be very fascinating, because I know that the conversations, like I mentioned, they're tricky to say the least. So it would be nice to have a third party.
Oh, that's what makes the market.
Basically, yeah, David.
That's the whole idea.
Right?
Yeah.
It's one person's ambitions against another's, right? So what Tland is doing is all very admirable and beautiful and lovely, but how do you guys make a revenue? What are the fees like on the platform? Are if I'm a holder, is there some fee there for me, a couple of % off my value? How does this work? How does that side of things happen?
So there is a little bit of a cut we do take on the primary market. So that's where sort of our commission comes in a little bit. So that's after the sort of funding has ended and we purchase the underlying NFT. And there is a little bit of a cut on the secondary market on our platform. So that's a smaller cut, obviously, because secondary market has to be a bit more liquid there. But yeah, for the most part, it's not necessarily fees that you be able to notice immediately. It's just
nice.
It's just commission on the primary market.
It's a given. You guys have got
way that Tland sort of sustains itself
exactly
from.
You guys have got to make revenue. Definitely not. I'm not trying to trip you up with the question. Like, I just find it an interesting fact. People,
that's important to know as well.
Like, a lot of people scoot past this question. I'm like, right now, especially sustainability of a platform, how well funded is your bank account? It's quite important stuff to see, whether the future potential for the next couple of years as well. All right, cool. So David, if I ask you this kind of broad question, so you're into you're into real estate. That was the first iteration, and now moving into NFT sharding and kind of that side of things, and to see how that goes. But what do you see as the big picture for Tland and the kind of what's the big goals here? What would you like to be doing in 5 years' time? Is it a mixture of everything or more focused on NFTs? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, a mixture of everything. So I think the initial idea is to prove that the concept works the way that we found our solution, that it's the best solution in fractionalizing ownership in some of these assets. So yeah, it's really about fractionalizing anything that can be fractionalized, and tying that somehow through the use of blockchain technology to always give that sort of user that extra security that they do own what they own. We want to sort of just provide that sort of very much needed liquidity in a lot of these markets, that especially the markets that have a lot of potential gains or incredible gains and benefits, but may have sort of very difficult barriers of entry, where a lot of users might not be able to access them even if they would like to. We want to sort of give the end user full control on how they actually want to utilize any of their investments, whether they want to keep it for any sort of speculative gains, whether they want to lease it out, if they want to earn a stable income, if they want to use collateral, whatever it really is, it sort of give that user the option to decide what they want to do with it. It's about adding that sort of extra utility to any of these fractionalized assets, while also retaining all the benefits of the underlying assets. So it makes more sense if fractionalizing an asset that you retain what gives the asset value, right? So we know a lot of NFTs have extra benefits embedded in them. That's something that has to be retained to even make sense. Otherwise, I think your NFT would lose value, because obviously you can't use it the way, or some of the functionality would disappear there.
And some things just wouldn't work, like those proof collective passes and things like that. These are individual passes for one person. Like, those things you couldn't do that. So yeah, there are some things that aren't possible to be sharded as well, I guess. So yeah, sorry, interrupted.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's just sort of wrapping it up. It's just also sort of adding more utility, as I mentioned, through our secondary market, giving, especially with the case of real estate, make it sort of a hot commodity that you can, how you go to a supermarket and you choose what you want for dinner. Do the same thing by deciding you want to buy, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, sort of asset, and diversify your portfolio. It's really about making investment a lot more accessible for a lot of people, without having to break their bank, and allowing them to diversify their portfolios in a very clean and easy manner. That's sort of what we sort of see for our project and how it should sort of look.
Nice, and some proof of work there as well. So, a couple of questions just off the back of that. Sorry, I did say we were at the end, but you're just too interesting, David. I'm sorry. It's just too interesting. I was just thinking.
I'll forgive you.
It's like you said earlier on in the call, we were talking about, how you were scoping out real estate across Europe and like working with developers and other companies to kind of identify good spots. How do you do that in the metaverse? So like at DappRadar, we write reports that are called like, metaverse land value report, and it will go through the last 3 months, any surges, any drop-offs, things like this. How well armed are your investors with the information that they need to make their decisions? Do you guys deal with that? Or is it kind of they need to do their own homework? Or how do you deal with that? Or maybe you don't and you need DappRadar's reports, David.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question as well. So it's a bit of a sort of hybrid answer, I guess, because we do sort of help out under that aspect. We have a lot of experts that know a lot of stuff about NFTs. We talked to a lot of these projects directly. So I think, as you said, a really good example is metaverse locations, right? How do you choose something that makes sense? Well, you have experts that have knowledge and we work with closely. You have the projects themselves that can give a lot of suggestions. And we can and we will give some sort of advice offers towards our users. Say, look, we've done our research here, and this is these are some of our suggestions on what you could purchase for the funds that were raised. But of course, it's not exclusive to that. If the community decides we want specifically, XYZ, well then let's get XYZ, right? That's what they want. That's what they get to purchase in the end, right? They also get to discuss with themselves and decide, which one of these they would like to purchase. It's a combination of both some of our suggestions from some of the experts we work with the projects we work with closely, but also with the end users' suggestions and any sort of ideas they might come up with what they want to purchase.
It's a really interesting topic because of the way that metaverse lands work. For like, if you purchase a piece of land next door to an influencer or a famous person that's bought a piece of land, the value will be higher, and you need to be close to. It's just like the real world. Like I was hunting around in Somnium space, and the guy was like, "Well, you need a teleporter. If you haven't got a teleporter, then you can't go anywhere." It just, all these things start to happen, and you hear these words and other things he's saying, like, "Oh, well, here you've got places where they sell food and drinks," and I'm like, "But I'm in the metaverse. What do I need food and drinks for?" "Oh, actually, I do." Like, this is crazy. So it's there. Everybody already knows how to. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people know how to do this already in the real world. I just feel sometimes they don't take their lessons in the real world and put them into the digital world, because it's not all that different, is it really? It's like the bigger it is, the more expensive it is. The closer it is to the sea and it's got a nice view, then it's going to be more expensive. So I just find it all very fascinating, David. To be honest with you, it's
Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up, though, that a lot of people know about metaverses, but a lot of people also don't necessarily, or don't have their confidence in that they understand it. And that's sort of also what we're trying to bridge, is make it easier for users just to access some of these without really having to have the knowledge for it. By giving that sort of advice.
Yeah, the knowledge is hard to take, hard to gain as well. Like, 'cause I noticed I was actually writing a report on metaverse lands, and so, for example, the other side metaverse lands, I think they sold for around $6,000 from Mint, right? And everyone was saying, "Oh, this is quite a high value, blah blah blah. This is quite expensive." But now, if you look at metaverse lands in the Sandbox, Crypto Voxels, other places, they've averaged out at around $5,000 in the dip. So actually, just that little piece of information is quite interesting, because it's like, well, did metaverse lands in the other side were quite fairly valued given the market? And I just never thought about it before. And then when I saw the numbers, I was like, oh, okay, so they were being quite fair. But that information is so important for investors, right? Like that because NFTs is there's so much going on out there. It can be very difficult to know. So yeah, sorry. Anyway, David, I'm just kind of thinking off wildly about data and other things here. Super interesting, though. Super interesting. Like I said at the beginning, it was always something I was really into and I really wanted to participate in, tokenizing national monuments so that they can be restored and things like that. Like, I think it's very cool. Alrighty. So I think we've covered the project really, really well. But David, I want to give you the chance to give any shout outs. Where can people best connect, best learn more about the project, And let's also be clear that there's two sides to it here. You've got the real estate side and the other side that I think is probably more in line with our audience. So give people the places they can head to. What social channels are the best ones for you guys?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're sort of really promoting our Discord right now. So we have a lot of exciting events happening on our Tland Discord. If you want to come find us, I think the easiest way to do it is through our demo platform. I believe it should be linked to Discord, but if not, you can find us on Discord under the name simply Tland. We also do have a Telegram if you want to come join our Telegram or our Twitter. Our Twitter has sort of our main side right now for where we post a lot of our information on what we're doing and what's happening. So if you really want to start sort of joining this space, we do, as I mentioned, we do have our upcoming funding happening on the 22nd of September. And we also do have a coin offering happening for our interested users, because with what's happening with our platform, obviously we came from Terra. We have a bit of initial funding. If users are interested in investing directly into the platform, and the whole idea that is also possible, we'd love all your support there. But sort of the main sort of places for us would be definitely Discord, Telegram, and Twitter.
Awesome. So people can reach out, find out more, and then you've got this demo running on the site now, which is so this is where people.
Yes. That is demo.tland.app. Yes.
Gives people an opportunity to dive in and kind of see what everything's about. I see here you've got Bored Ape Yacht Club, collection of 10,000. Oh, cool. Oh, okay. Okay, nice. So this is a place where people can go and kind of better understand the simplicity of it. Because at the beginning of the session, I always say, oh, we're going to unpack some complicated topics here, but sometimes we really don't. This is kind of straightforward, guys. So like this is, we may have made it sound complicated, but it really isn't. So I would tell people to go and check out this demo page. This is a good thing to get started. All righty, cool. So that's all the time we've got for this week. I want to say a huge thank you to our guest today, David. Thanks, man. You've done a really, really cool job of explaining what the project is all about, how it works, and what you guys want to do. So yeah, it's not always as complicated as we make it sound. And from my side, I think the fractionalization of real world assets is super interesting area of the industry. And it's one that at DappRadar we expect to grow as more people become aware of the benefits and also the simplicities of blockchain tech. So very cool stuff. And David, I wish you the best of luck moving forward, and perhaps we'll catch up again in the future when you guys are fractionalizing everything. That would be very cool. So any final shouts from your side, David, before we wrap up?
Oh, well, thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much for having me. It was a very pleasant chat.
Always good. I like a nice chat, especially on a Tuesday. Awesome. All right, David, thank you very much for your time today. And hopefully we'll connect at a later date and catch up with what's going on. So that's it from us today, guys. We've got a couple more sessions, but please don't forget also that on Wednesdays, I do a live show with two of my colleagues from DappRadar, Charlie and Robert. We go out at 12 o'clock UTC. And we're live. We started doing it live, which is pretty goddamn scary, but it's also pretty cool. And we stream that on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So we always dive into the hottest topics. And tomorrow we're going to be giving out we're actually judging a meme competition. So please join us for that, because honestly, some of the entries are the funniest things you've ever seen in your life. So if you want a good laugh tomorrow, come and join us, 12 o'clock UTC, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We shall be there. Come and join us. All right, guys. Big thanks to David again. Big thanks to the people who joined in. And don't forget, you can unpack all this on YouTube later. It'll be there in about 24 hours time. All right, guys, take care. Big love. See you later.